Alright, so boom. This ties down to the norovirus and ties to how Russia ties into this. Um, Being a Russian plague, right? But some of my tabs got deleted, so I'm gonna make this a little short. Alright. Sending good energy to y'all. No fear, because what this fear does, it blocks the awareness of your intuition. It blocks your clairvoyance. Like, I got poisoned by something and no one really didn't know. It seemed like no one really cared or even believed me. But I got poisoned and almost OD'd, pretty much. Or almost died from it. And no one would have never knew. It's just, I didn't want to tell nobody because as it was happening, I couldn't be in the spirit of fear. And I couldn't attract that spirit of fear to me. Feel me? Because that's energy. That's dealing with me. Especially when you're interconnected with other people. So instead of being in fear, I started gaining my intuition and listened to that. And it told me to go back to what I learned this whole time since I went to the cosmos. And that was eating star fruits. Getting back to the grounding. Maybe take a little shower, but say the shower wasn't really working. Only thing that was working was the fruit. It was creating air. And then that allowed me to ground and be in the trees to get more air. Because when you're grounding, that actually reproduce more cells. That's why it kind of helps with inflammation and all types of stuff like that when your feet are in the soil. Because now you're connecting to your nervous system, right? You're supposed to always be connected to it. But a lot with this rubber, they kind of disconnect that, right? But anyway, getting back to point. So, thing is, you need to stay with nature through this cycle because all this shit, their timing is going along a cycle, dealing with a universal code, which is your DNA code, which is the cycle. So they go against that so they can manipulate you, meaning kind of knowing more about you than them. But if you are awakening yourself, then you can snap into something that they're trying to figure out. It's just, you can use that to battle. Like, my video was up while I was talking. You become commander in chief of the sun, low key, when you tap in. Once you're aligned, you're pretty much in control, but you have to realize you're in control, right? Because you can see that you controlled some shit and still won't even think you're doing it. That's because of your body, right? And the fast actually helps that, so you don't even think that way when you're consciously trying to do something, right? It has to match it. It have to match because they're not separate. That's why niggas is pushing division. That's why people is waking up and still gonna be in a position of dividing themselves from other people just because they're still hurt. And I know it's gonna happen. I'm seeing a lot of Inky and Enlil energies, and that's what that twin represent, or the two parallels. The discordance of the two, which is your spirit and soul, right? So if your spirit and soul can't cooperate, then what do you think you're really going to be doing in the crown chakra? You're going to be using that chaos energy for the wrong reasons. And if you know karma, it's going to be taught to you the right way. But you'll see before you perish. So look, let's get this jump started. What was the cause of the epidemic in Savannah in 1733? First of all, I need to see what even made me come here. because this is old. What did this word come from? I was trying to break down a word apparently, and I can't remember. So let's just get to it from here, anyways. Related pages. What is interstitial cystitis? I can guarantee that's coming from beef. A lot of red meats. Anyways, it's a chronic bladder condition resulting in reoccurring discomfort or pain in the bladder surrounding the pelvic region, around the reproduction region, right? Alright, so let's move forward, because I'm really trying to figure out what happened June 12th, 1733. Alright, so I was looking up some shit from yesterday, or June 12th, and I think 1773. I must have subtracted something to get that. I wish. This is why I was supposed to make videos as I'm doing it, not after the fact. It makes sense after a while why I be doing that. It's a lot of shit I be having, and it get deleted when I don't do it, or I just forget to do it, and then that throws the timeline of this whole story, because as the CMEs is hitting and getting, it's clicking with the timeline it's hitting from. Because remember what I said, those hertz, when it hits your DNA code, your universal code, which is tied to the Akashic records, it brings memory from that era. Because if you were to dream and see it, or astral project out your body, then you see it, that become memory. Depending on what the fuck you were doing when you saw that memory, which is going to be shown if you don't have fear. If you remove the fear from your body, physically and mentally. I say remove the fear from your body is from physically, is from the consumption. Because the drug that's in the air, or the ions that they're manipulating from the solar flares and the CMEs and shit, those interact with the spike proteins, and it also interact with your cells, period, because that's how it interacts with the spike protein. Because the spike proteins get in the red blood cell, and the hemoglobin has to transport it to the respiratory system, and that's when you can get a lot of cloggedness, not enough airflow, which can cause disruptions dealing with certain organs, dealing with your chakra system, because it's supposed to work in a cycle. So if that cycle's not working, then that's like working at a factory line. If something gets clogged in this machine, then everything stops, and then the lights come on, then you have to fix that to keep the whole cycle operating right without a problem. You feel me? So I can't remember how I even got to this date, but we just gonna get on with the message. Okay, so June 12th in Berlin, Prince Frederick of Prussia, Russia. So the big P and capital P, that's a symbol for pi, but pi is PI and then whatever. But then the other letter for it is a capital P. But the capital P stands for the Rho constellation, which is the opening of the firmament. Rho also stands for a type of bloodline. Rho also stands for rhodium, and Roman, in my eyes, is a prefix for Roman. It's just the H is silent. So that means it means some whole other shit too. But Prince Frederick of Roman Russia, the 20-year-old heir to the throne, reluctantly marries Duchess Elizabeth Christine of Brunswick-Bevern. If I said that wrong, fuck you. I mean, not like that, but like, don't be making fun of me. In order to avoid prosecution for desertion from the Prussian or the Roman Russian army, that's what I'm gonna call Prussian. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the Prussian army is the Roman Russian army and guaranteed the throne. So I'm just gonna skip what I had going on. All right. So what was the cause of the epidemic? Let's go back. What was the cause of the epidemic in Savannah in 1733? That deals with George again. And George got settlements and Atlantis. Yeah, he was making settlements all through Atlantis. So it was one set up in Prussia or Russia. It's one set up in Russia. It's one set up in South Georgia, South America. It's an island that's just made with fucking scientists that live there. Nobody else lives there. It's around Sandwich Islands. That's where all the scientists live. And Sandwich, sand is really powerful. It's really how they generate a lot of shit and create a lot of stuff from sand, right? Crazy thing. That's gonna have to be something that ties to another lecture because I did write about that and I never continued on it. But it's funny how they use symbolism of sand for shit, and that's gonna tie down to the answer. So we're gonna get on that though later on. But another Georgia settlement is in Atlanta, Georgia, or Georgia period as the state. Prince George's County is another one. So that ties to Washington, D.C. or the DMV area dealing with the colonies. All right. Then you got Russia, Georgia. Then you got South America, Georgia, North America, Georgia. Most likely, D.C. might be the fourth, but there's definitely more than that. All right. So let's get it popping. Because this is tying down to the fifth dimension and the sixth dimension time. So when it's dealing with a loop, this is the same shit we're dealing with in the year 2000s. Because remember, time is a measurement in quantum cycles. So we're always going through a cycle. It's been like this whole time. It's just in reality, they can't say this is that and the third. It's just is now. Feel me? Like this whole time has been hot. Like I was having my shirt off under the sun. Like when the beam hitting your skin and it's cold as fuck, it feels warm as hell. Warmer than having clothes on your back till you hit the shade. So let's get it. Alright, so on November 17th, 1732, Englishman James Edward in 1696 to 1785 set sail on the Anne from Gravesend on the River Thames with 114 colonists. 2 plus 4 equals 6. With a charter from King George II to establish an English colony in Georgia. Oglethorpe intended the colony as a second chance for those who had been debtors prison, meaning POWs of prisoners of war, while King George also sought this colony as a buffer for the English colonies in the Carolinas against the Spanish colony in Florida. The crossing took 8 weeks, and the colonists landed in Charlestown, South Carolina on January 13, 1733. The colony was established as Savannah, Georgia on February 12, 1733. On April 6, 1733, William Cox, colonist physician, died. And in early July, a febrile, okay, this will be going, because we in June, right? Remember, June is spring, okay? You have to remember this just in case if I don't repeat it while we're looking at these dates. June is spring, going into September being summer, right? So that's when 7 is going to start kicking in. But right now, it's June. It's like it's being March right now, going into June, which June 2nd is represented as the second resurrection. But the thing in reality, that's September 2nd. Alright, so, but July, August, September is the basis of the 3 months because it's really only 3 months, right? And then it has a cycle that's dealing with 9, right? And that goes to the 9 months that's counting, or the 9 energies that's it's fucking with right now. Right? And then that deals with 4 alternates, right? Because it's dealing with 2 sides of the grid, mu and nu. 2 sides of the grid, the split is at the universal line. That being said, we got that down. All right, let's get to the story. In early July, an illness struck the new colony, taking the lives of 3 people in the early part of July. On July 11, 1733, a ship that departed from London carrying 41 Jews, mostly Portuguese Jews, with the German Jewish families, who had been living in London unexpectedly arrived in Savannah. Moors. Among the arrival was Portuguese Jewish physician Samuel Nunes. 11 more of the English colonists died in July, but Oglethorpe credited Dr. Nunes with the alleviating the epidemic and saving the colony. He proceeded by cold baths, cooling drinks, and other applications, since which the sick have wonderfully recovered, while initially being reluctant to allow the Jewish settler to join the colony. The actions of the Nunes caused Oglethorpe to allow them to join the new colony. And this is when the Moors taught them some shit. This initiated as an era inclusion for the colony. A group of Lutherans were allowed to join the colony in 1734. Satan always make a problem and then try to come there to fix it. Feel me? Just to make shit more worse. It's a finesse. They initiated This initiated an era of inclusion for the colony. A group of Lutherans were allowed to join the colony in 1734. Oglethorpe was also against slavery, though unfortunately apparently on the grounds that having slaves made others not have to work themselves, rather than on moral grounds. Tolerance and inclusiveness did not extend to the Catholics. It had at least partly outfared for for perfidy with Spain. What caused the epidemic in Savannah 1733? We have not seen this question. Whoop-de-woo. We will study this question in ages and blah blah blah. We found a collated following source as data for Jewish settlers: a diary of deaths, births, marriages, and arrivals and departure from the colony, compiled by settler Benjamin Sheftall and completed by his son Levi Sheftall. English records that corroborates whatever the fuck this is. I bit my tongue again. Diary entirely. Diary entries in terms of individuals who were alive after 1733, reports from 1735 that some Jewish settlers attended Church of England services in Savannah and records of Jewish settlers granted land in December 1733 or later. We analyzed the data for factors such as age, sex, and occupation of individuals who died in July of 1733 compared with individuals who survived the epidemic. We also looked at the time course of death prior, during, and after 1733. 1733 would be like 2023. Let's just say that. In supplementary table, data for the original colonists who set sail on the Anne are shown. I read so much faster when I skim. That's about 6%. Alright, so Jewish settlers in July 1733 was zero or very low. Indeed, Sheftall does further record the death of the baby during the Jewish settlers crossing the Atlantic. There thus appeared to have been a very significant difference in mortality between the young adult English colonists and the Jewish settlers. The febrile illness could have caused high death rate among the English colonists in 1733. It would be helpful to have a good case of description of disease. However, we only found a brief one from Oglethorpe, which he said, but the illness, being once frequent, became contagious. It appeared chiefly in burning fevers or else bloody fluxes attended by convulsions and other terrible symptoms. The natural history of the disease that caused the epidemic is not described. However, we do not know it was a disease that had extraordinarily high kill rate in a population that was prior and subsequent to July 1733 did not suffer any other such events. One possibility to consider as the cause is yellow fever. Yellow fever is caused by flavivirus, flavivirus that is transmitted by the bite of a female mosquito. Remember, all the mosquitoes got released, right? Most of them supposed to be looking big as fuck. They look small. You don't really see mosquitoes as much as you used to, unless it's cloudy out. But I noticed mosquitoes don't fuck with heat. They probably will dry up and blow up, even though they fuck with lamps, you know, it's not really. They only come outside when it's cloudy or like cool. But they're like parasites. I wonder do they get charged by that light? Some shit would make them grow. Cause where the hell they be during the day? They don't be under the sun to grow, but they always under lights. Feel me? LD lights. Alright. Yellow fever were uncommon summer month in port cities in North America at that time. Indeed, there was a major yellow fever epidemic in Charlestown, New York. There is a major yellow fever epidemic in Charlestown, New York, and Philadelphia, 1732. One in Norfolk, Virginia, in 1737, and another one in Charlestown in 1739. But no yellow fever epidemic was known for North America in 1733. There was a significant traffic of individuals between Charlestown and Savannah in the spring. Starting now, right? Okay, so they said the spring started March, but they usually release a new virus January or some type of something. So April 1st was when this shit started, giving it about 2 months. June, as it always starts in June, is going to get built up into talk by July, September. Boom, lockdown, all this shit going on. I don't trust Halloween this year, cause all them Halloween stories of how them bodies get taken and they just be zombies and shit, that can actually happen, cause that's just science dealing with a state of matter. It just needs a body to operate in. Period. Like, if niggas was to call on a spell dealing with bar and shit, yeah, that shit can happen. Magic. Alright, so it's just that will have a timeline due to a moon. And that's probably how long it would last for, till in that moon cycle. Um, Indeed, there was a major blah, blah, blah. Typically, about 85% of individuals infected with yellow fever have a mild disease course. 15% can process to much more severe phase of the disease, with mortality for this stage being high as 30% to 50%. So the mortality rate of 13%, 14 out of 109 for the English colonists, is not unprecedented for the yellow fever, but at the far upper range. Indeed, no yellow fever epidemic in the United States is known to have such a high mortality rate other than coronavirus, right? Keep it going. Yellow fever can cause gastrointestinal bleeding, but due to coagulopathy coagulopathy from liver damage, there is also often bleeding in the mouth and eyes, and these are signs mentioned by Oakleport. So that's dealing with the chimera, and the chimera dragon has a lion face. So by July 27, this shit should be kind of spreading a little bit more. If you were to catch it in the early stage, then that means you're building immunity for the future stage. So don't feel too bad if you're feeling sick right now. Uh, it hasn't fully kicked in yet. The only thing I can tell you, you're only sick because you've been intaking too many animals and not enough fruits and vegetables. Like, it should be 75, really 100% natural, but if you're not, at least 75% natural. Just like, because that creates the water and the air, just like the planet. So, but the thing is, the higher intensity comes, you're not even gonna, you might wanna dib and eat that, but you're gonna feel like shit afterwards. Like, especially if you're not even like doing, like, you eating spike proteins from the animals and you're not eating no fruits and vegetables, you're definitely gonna feel like shit. I'm trying to tell you, your body is trying to repair from this light, but if you go against the light, it's going to cause a body to shut down. Feel me? Can look like an overdose from a drug or something, but when they tell you it's going to come from an unknown source, just like most of the fentanyl or most of the shit that you see with famous people just end up dying. You feel me? Ties down to the same shit. It's just the one they use. That's the hard hitter one right there. Feel me? Alright. So the thing is, when the sun or the energy, the sunlight or the ether is interacting with your cells, it's trying to reproduce it to more so it can create more air inside of your state of matter because your state of matter is actually going higher. It's trying to bring you to the plasma state and the physical, right? And as you're going through that, you should be remembering how, when, what, when, how, why. Feel me? That's what you should be going through right now. If not, you're just going along with life, still probably stressing shit out. And at this time in life, it's either you're gonna give up or you're gonna put up a fight. Period. And that's what the energy is picking up on. So it's dealing with people who actually wanna be around for this fight and ones who ain't got it no more in them. Feel me? Because it also deals with karma and your consciousness. Like, your consciousness need to know where the fuck to go when you so-called die on this planet. If it doesn't go, knows where to go from the consciousness it was in before it went, then that could be a problem in the cosmos. Make you feel trapped somewhere, right? So, like, the time course. Alright, so boom, 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 boom. Child lack or exposure to mosquito vector from not working or living near seaport docks. Mortality, yellow fever, blah, blah, blah. The time course of Savannah epidemic is not particularly consistent with yellow fever. The incubation period for yellow fever is 3 to 6 days. This is followed usually by a 3 to 4 day mild self limiting illness and then return to health with long lifelong immunity against the virus. In the minority of the case, the initial illness is followed by a day or two remission period and then a toxic phase which can lead to a death in 10 to 14 days. Cuz really all that shit is doing chemical compound wise is really creating a type of fentanyl, and that's why they call it the zombie virus. Because even if they didn't give it to you, it's certain things that they fed you that you normalize that can create that compound in your bloodstream just by the sunlight and the energy that is in. Meaning, it would have did it already, but the intent, like the strength of it, is weaker when you're in a third dimensional energy. So it won't really affect you as fast as it would affect you now. That's why as it's mutating, it's getting stronger because the more the intensity gets stronger, the more the cells reproduce. And that's dealing with natural cells and these cDNAs, like the shit that comes from animals and shit. Like when you intake natural cells, now you're dealing with more air, more of a blood flow, more of conscious thinking. Like you just become aware of shit. When you're intaking a lot of spike proteins and then you have a lot of magnetism pulling in physically, that's not really supposed to be in you. We had a connection with animals, not the fucking, we wasn't destroying the animal kingdom by eating them. Plus, it wasn't even a sacrifice, right? And then when you're praying over top of it, most likely you're using another name that ties right back to Zeus and Amun Ra. When you say Amen, you're tying back to Amun Ra, period. So it's like, that's a spiritual part aspect to it. Physical part aspect to it. It's not supposed to be in your body. So that means that's a spike protein. So that's just going to create cholesterol problems even faster because the rate is 3 times the normal rate. So that means it's not going to take 30, 40, 50 years to happen. It's going to take about 3, the damn 9 years to happen. You feel me? Because the rate is faster, meaning the state of matter is faster. Like the atoms is moving around faster when you're in this type of air. So when the outside air is state of matter is moving faster, that's supposed to be involving you and your state of matter. But if you're not going with it naturally, then that's going to destroy your state of matter like an overdose, right? Because you done overdosed yourself of unnatural things that does not serve your body nothing. That's why the fasting becomes a everyday thing till it becomes a normal thing. Just like shadow work, it's an everyday thing till it becomes a normal thing. Because the whole point of fasting is breaking from what does not serve you. So if you tying back to shit that don't serve you, you backsliding. I mean, it happens. But I'm just telling you, you need to get your blood clean first throughout the cycles before you even think about backsliding. Because Your cells is going to be conscious now when you're fasting throughout the cycles. Your cells become conscious. Okay? So it's a different because your mental is tied down to your cells too. So now that your mental is conscious of what's going on physically, when it happens again, your cells know what to do to fight it. That's your immunity type shit. When your immune system breaks down, your metabolism slows up, and then that's when it comes a slow up in the blood flow. That creates dams and blockages, which creates blockages for sounds, which is why niggas' ears are bleeding now. Because the frequency is getting higher to like 2,000 hertz, and another angstrom that could be 20,000 hertz, or another angstrom that could be uh 222. That's where you get your V2, right? Because the atom is trying to get charged by two ethers, right? Each atom, not just one, each atom. And you have millions and billions of it. So now that charge that was already charged is now going to be on like some star power charge. You feel me? It's trying to get there, but if your cells aren't reproducing, your body, if especially the more melanin you got, the more magnetism you pull in. So that being said, if you're not sweating the shit out of you, then you don't need to be eating nothing else but nature. Because if not, that's going to make muscle contractions because the blood flow can't get to where it needs to go to make the red blood cells produce air in your body, right? That's what the elements tie down to because all the elements have to work corresponding with each other because it creates air and water. Feel me? Carbon, hydrogen. Okay? So it's like if you're not creating that no more because of the spike proteins, you didn't have to just take the jump shot. They're still coming for your ass through the food and through the air. They're still coming for everybody. Not like everybody low key in the same boat. It's just some people like in a better boat. For me, everybody's getting attacked at this time still. They want you to make they wanted to make it seem like ain't shit gonna happen. But now we back in solar, so the intensity is rising back up again. I mean, it's been rising, but it's back at a faster rate because the lunar eclipse that they said wasn't even on that date. That was some whole other shit. The manipulation was still manipulated because that interfered me when they tried to attack me, right? And I'm not the only one they try to attack. Like, from what I heard, there's other spiritual people on here that got attacked on that same day on the 24th, right? Just me, they really did some hop-ins around me type shit. And I allowed that into my energy just to see. But I ended up going through some shit. But that just brought me right back to seeing how nature will really help you survive through this shit. Like, I literally ate fruit as my body's going out, and it was helping it come back to normal. It was getting into my bloodstream, and then that was helping the red blood cells reproduce so it can fight whatever that was trying to take me out. And then the grounding and the being around the trees, that helped. You feel me? I had to release some, I had to ejaculate too to get whatever that was in my sperm out of my sperm or out of my body. Feel me? It's just like the same way with cancer cells or shit like that. When people have sex, it clears shit up like that. Feel me? That's why it's better to be having sex with someone who's clean in the body, like blood wise, because a lot of these STDs are getting passed around, and a lot of people don't know it's coming from food. At this point, it's coming from the jump shot, food, or dealing with the air, because the epoxy dust actually deals with something called CVID, which is the deficiency, immunoglobulin deficiency, which is pretty much another word for HIV. Like they got many words and many viruses talking about this same shit, but it all ties back to the same thing. The next video I make is going to be about Russia. I don't know how long I've been on this screen recording, but I don't like holding my phone. It's better that I'm doing it on my phone and not YouTube, because they would have been sending a frequency to interrupt my hand, which interrupts the cells. Like I be knowing where it comes from, because my phone doesn't have battery problems for it to be cutting off. So that being said, if there's anyone good that's listening to this upload, get rid of them. Thank you.